This is Photoshop Project 1, Stage 4, Saving Photoshop Files for Print. When you send a file that you have been working on out, just like when we worked in Illustrator, you don't normally send a native Illustrator file, you do not normally send out a native Photoshop file. We would be sending out most likely a JPEG, a TIFF file, a PNG file if it's going to be put on the internet, or a Photoshop PDF file. The Photoshop PDF and the TIFF can be compressed and still maintain the layers. For our purposes here, I need to see your layers. I need to know what you've done. I need to make sure that everything has been correctly assembled. So I don't want to see this flattened. I want to be able to see your work. We're going to save out in two file formats. We're going to save this as both a PDF, because we've already saved PDFs in Illustrator, and we're going to save as a TIFF. But before we do, I'm going to have you reduce the file size. The reason I'm going to do this is because our files are quite large. Our Photoshop file for this lesson is an 81 megabyte file. I don't want you to send me an 81 megabyte file. We are going to reduce the size of the file down and save this out as a 4 and a 3.72 megabyte file, which is going to be much easier for you to turn in. It's going to make a smaller file, but I'll still be able to see your layers. I'm going to actually delete these files so that I don't get screaming things at me when I'm trying to save. The first thing I need you to do, and this is very important, is to go into image size. We have constructed this at a 300 pixel per inch resolution, and that's why our file size is so large. Image size is 25 megabytes, but that is for one layer, and we have multiple layers. So our image size comes out to be, as I showed you in the files, this is an 81 meg file. The reason that we see this as a 25 meg is because that was the size it would be if it was flattened all to one layer. We are going to sample this down, so make sure that resample is selected and change your resolution to 72. This is going to give me a much smaller file size. Already I'm at a 14 meg file, and my document size here, if this were flattened, would only be 1.5 megs. So this is well within what we can send. Next, I'm going to do a file, save as. We're going to select to do a Photoshop PDF. I want to save this as a copy. I'm going to include my layers, and I'm going to put my initials in, and I'm going to save. In the dialog box, I am going to select Press Quality. Oh, this sounds really familiar, doesn't it? But I'm going to go into my compression. I'm going to go to File, Save As, and I'm going to put my initials in. I'm going to save as a PDF. It's Photoshop PDF. Okay? I want to make sure I'm saving as a copy with my layers selected. Save. And I'm going to go into Press Quality. I want to make sure my Photoshop editing capabilities is checked, and in compression we're going to change this to a zip compression. Image quality is an 8-bit, which is fine. Press quality is modified, that's good. And we're going to say save your PDF. I can now go in and open that PDF file, and you can see that my layers are all there. And I forgot quickly here, let me go back into File and Open. This is now a 5.5 meg file, which is going to be much easier to turn in. I also want to save this out as a TIFF file because honestly I want you to send me the TIFF this time. I'm going to go into File, Save As, and again I'm going to select my Save As type, and this time all the way down at the bottom I'm selecting TIFF. Again, I'm saving this as a copy. Put your initials in and hit Save. We want an LZW compression, and because I would like to keep this a smaller file, we are going to use a zip layer compression. That's going to give me a slightly smaller file than if I went with the RLE, which is going to save faster, but it's going to create a larger file. We want a small file for portability for this instance. I would not do this except for this class. If you are sending this out professionally to actually be printed, you would need to save this as the RLE. We would not have downsampled this thing from a 300 pixel per inch down to a 72. We would have maintained the 300 pixel per inch. This is strictly for purposes for this class. And when we say OK to this, yes, we will get the warning that including layers will increase the file size. I will say OK to that. It may take a little bit of time. You may get a blue message down at the bottom and tell you it's taking a little bit. But what I want to do is to open this file. And here I can check that my TIFF file is actually slightly smaller than what my PDF file is. I will open that file up. Here you can see I have all of my layers still. My image size is small. I am at the 72 pixels per inch, but that's okay because it's going to be easier for you to turn into me. Now, if we were going to send this to a company to be printed, I would not reduce the size. I would go back up to my original 300 and I would go to File, do a Save As again. If I was going to save this as a TIFF file, I would save it as a copy. I'm going to turn off my layers. I would not save this with layers to send out to be worked on. I'm going to save this. Again, I would do the LZW compression, but I would probably do an RLE, which is going to be a bigger file. I'm going to say OK with that. I should not have layers selected. Now, when I open this, let me find, there's my larger one. It is still 11 megs, which is not bad, but when I open this, it is only one layer. We lost the layers, and I don't want that turned in. You'll get points off because I cannot see the work that you did. I can only see the aftermath of it being flattened.